Good morning and welcome to another weekly update. I hope you're doing well. We are getting closer to Christmas and that's always fun, right? And who's ready? Not me. It is probably, maybe, I think so, appropriately time for the Christmas overlay. So that's exciting. One of my picks this week is how to get an overlay just like this on your next Microsoft Teams call. So if that sounds interesting, and yes, that number, the 13 days, the 13 days is updated automatically based on the date, which is kind of cool. Using the same technology actually I use to update the weekly update banner, which is also updated automatically, which is kind of neat. Anyway, full details on how to do all of that coming up at the end of the at the end of this update. Anyway, let's talk about Microsoft Teams things. And first of all, so we talked about the European SharePoint conference last week. One of the things during my session that I wanted to do was share the source code. I always like to share kind of the project code that I use in the demos because I want people to be able to take it and do their own stuff with it. And I didn't quite have a decent landing page ready. Normally I put it all into a GitHub project, make it public and give it to people on the way out so they can kind of take it and do whatever they want to do with it. Didn't quite have it ready this time around. So I did tell everyone on in the session that I would make it available and do a blog post. And so that is exactly what I've done. So if you wanted to see the demo code from my talk, then you can go and do that. It's on GitHub. It's right here. If you want to see a video, by the way, of what ESPC 22 was like, there's a 30-minute video there that I put together of everything, like the keynote, the sessions, the expo hall, some of the evening stuff, the entertainment, the getting there, my thoughts, all sorts of things are in there. So if that sounds interesting, you've got that as well. But really the point of the blog post was for this this GitHub project. And then there's a little bit at the end as well, because one of the demos I did was a Power App, just kind of demonstrating the same functionality that I did in Pro Code. I wanted to show how it was possible to do it with low code. So that's what that is. So you can go, so if you're putting together a low code solution, then you'll need that bit at the end that isn't in the GitHub project. But yes, so I hope that's useful. If you're at the talk, it was great to see you. And hopefully if you were waiting for the demo code, here it is. If you weren't at the talk, but you want to look at the demo code anyway, that's cool too. And yeah, we'll see. All right, let's talk about something slightly different. Azure Communication Services, kind of related if you were at the talk. There's a roll-up blog post for December, talking about all the new things that have happened in Azure Communication Services in December. Well, I guess things that have happened in November, but this is the December update. I think most of these we've already touched on, but it is worth just going through anyway, just to make sure, or in case you missed them. So the public preview of Call Automation is out. So Call Automation is really for using Azure Communication Services to do back-end routing, back-end answering, so having calls answered by bots and having them routed to different people or even automatically answered and resolved and done and ended. You can do things like voice reminders, you can do things like alerting, you could sort of build out a customer service solution this way. Lots of things there. You've got some updates to call recording. You can now support unmixed audio. So what does that mean? It means you can get unmixed audio streams, so like individual audio streams for doing things like sentiment analysis or OCR, what's it called? Text to speech, speech to text, sorry. And so that's interesting. If that's a use case that is of interest to you, go check out the call recording updates for Azure Communication Services. It really does feel, by the way, like Azure Communication Services and that team are really building out this platform to be, have all of the kind of pro level features that a decent audio-based recording that kind of platform really needs. Things like unmixed audio is quite a specific and advanced functionality feature that would be absolutely important to the right people in the right context. So I think it's really good that they're really putting that effort in to round out the platform and give it all of the things that it needs. And then another one is the network diagnostic tool. Really, this is useful. So there's two ways this is useful. The first is it's a diagnostic tool. So it's if you're having problems with using, or your customers having problems using Azure Communication Services, use this as a decent tool to figure out what's wrong. But what's interesting is that it's powered by and built upon the pre-call APIs. Which are also now in public preview. So these are a set of APIs that developers can build into their own solution to do some kind of pre-call diagnostics to make sure the call is going to go well. Again, really common ask, really part of building a really good, solid solution is having a way for people to check before they make a call that call is going to be successful. So that's kind of cool. And then finally, there's a Azure Communication Services chat channel for Bot Framework now in public preview. Again, kind of interesting. If you've built stuff on Bot Framework, you'll be familiar with the concept of channels. This is a new channel for Azure Communication Services chat. So on top of the channel you've already got for, say, Microsoft Teams or Direct Line or whatever to embed chat functionality, you've also got one now for Azure Communication Services chat. So really rounding out that platform, some functionality there that is, I guess, aimed at making it more accessible, unlocking some of those features that people really need to build next level solutions, and also working on the integration. It's good to see the Azure Communication Services team working to integrate their solution with other parts of the Microsoft stack. That's really good. Cool. So lots of updates really towards the end of the year for Azure Communication Services. I think all of these things have been announced since Ignite. So it really shows that team are motoring on and getting stuff done, which is great. All right, I want to talk about this next feature, which was actually something, I thought it was something else that it wasn't quite when I first read it. And I think maybe it could be that. It's kind of interesting. I got really excited when I first read it. Let's go through it together. It's called Share in Meeting. And it allows people to use, developers or third-party apps to use the meeting stage. So in a Microsoft Teams meeting, you've got that stage that you can open, and if you're a developer, you can build a Microsoft Teams app solution that uses that stage to present content. And what this is a way of dropping in some JavaScript and HTML into your web app or any web page really to present a share to meeting button, which will take your content and share it into that meeting. And I read that first and I thought that's really interesting because potentially every website could drop this share and meeting button onto their stuff, and without having to do anything else, we'll be able to share it into a Microsoft Teams meeting. That's not quite the case. You do still need to have a Microsoft Teams app in play, because in the, when you configure the share, you need to specify the app ID, and then when it comes up in the experience for people, is you get the name of the app and stuff in here. So it's not quite a completely seamless, just drop this in. A bit like, I thought it was going to be like the sharing Teams button, which is completely seamless, completely effortless in terms of you don't need an app, you don't need any setup, you just need to drop it into your web page and then you're done. I thought this was going to be that. It's not quite that simple. You do need to have an app behind it. You need to have an app rolled out for users and all the rest of it. But it's interesting. I think it's a nice feature. It's a nice piece of functionality. It does make it easier if you've already got an app out there. It does make it a lot easier to take the content of your app. So let's say you've got, like a CMS that is built on the web, web-based CMS or web page-based CMS, and you've already built a Teams bot and a couple of tabs or something like that. You can actually take this share to meeting button and put it on every page of your CMS and make it really, really easy for people to share content into meetings. This is quite clever the way it works. If you click that button, you've already got a meeting in play. It will go straight into that meeting. If you don't have a meeting, it will pop up asking if you want to start a meet now, or whether you want to create a new meeting or whatever. So it's quite nice for doing that. Like, there's a nice flow there where you might see something and be like, oh, I want to talk about this with, Bob and Alice. You can quickly click that button, even if you're not in a meeting with them, go for a meet now scenario, add them in, and then be talking about it straight away. So I think that's kind of cool for that. But like I say, it wasn't quite what I thought it was when I first heard it or first read it. But it is exciting. It is interesting. There's a lot of detail in here on exactly what developers need to do and how it will work, as well as what all the parameters, the query parameters that you need for real deep linking, as well as the manifest changes you'll need to make to support this. So that's really interesting. Good to see some new functionality there. Excuse me. Next up, let's talk about Teams communities. Now, I'm not going to talk about this for very long because it doesn't really impact Teams developers at this point. There is no development scenario for this, but it's worth just covering because, you know, if you're into Teams development, maybe you're the Microsoft Teams person at your organization. Maybe you're the Microsoft Teams person in your family, and so it's worth just knowing this thing exists if you haven't already heard about it, and that is communities in Microsoft Teams. A kind of reimagining, if you like, of how the free version of Microsoft Teams might be used. And communities is exactly what it sounds like. It's for basically think of the collaboration features of the professional Microsoft Teams, where you've got channels and teams and meetings. Sort of transpose that into your personal life where you have communities. So that might be, football groups, parent-teacher association, event planning committees, church groups, whatever else it is. You could have a community around that. It gives you a place hosted by Microsoft Teams in that kind of Teams structure, if you like, to do things like chats and files and meetings and calling and all the rest of it. It's free to use. I think it uses OneDrive, personal OneDrive under the hood. So at some point, if you share enough files with enough people, you might hit those limits. But it's kind of free to get started with. It's built into the standard Microsoft Teams application. So if you've already got Teams on mobile, you'll need to do some tenant switching. So if you go back to your personal tenant, then you'll see it'll light up immediately to say create a community, join a community. There's no desktop version at the moment. It is purely mobile right now. And I think that's coming soon. So yeah, just wanted to let you know that that communities exists. It's a thing. If it sounds like it could be a good thing for your community, you probably already have it if you have the Teams mobile version on your mobile device. You can go and check it out. And so that's that. And then, so finally, I did say I'd talk about the snow effect. So this one, and I talked about this on a few years ago, and I did a blog post about it in 2020, so 2 years ago now. So I'll put a link to that blog post in. It's kind of cool. It's done using OBS. It's really, really simple to do. And the wording at the bottom, it comes from a web page. So there's a web page that works out, based on the day it is, how many days until Christmas. That is on my GitHub as a project. It's public, so you can take it and use it and steal it. And anyway, so this is the blog post I did 2 years ago. Here you go. You can see that's me 2 years ago, and exactly the same thing. I've switched computers a few times since then, but the effect and the setup is exactly the same. This is a much tidier office there by the look of it than the one I'm in right now. But then that was 21 days to Christmas, and now we're 12 days to Christmas. So all the stuff behind me is Christmas related, which is probably why it's so messy. So this goes into all the detail about how you add the snow and all the rest of it, and the countdown that I spoke about. So if that sounds like interesting, and if you want to put that into your next Teams meeting, you absolutely can do, and go and steal it and put it on your next Teams call. Sounds fun, right? All right, okay. I think we're done for this week. Have a great week, whatever it is you're doing, and I will speak to you again next time.